Welcome to Spoilers Intended, a podcast about series, novels, and films. For this episode, we're all about destroying the bed, seeing concerts instead, and shouting words better left unsaid. That's right, we're talking Pixar's Turning Red. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm Stephen Ford, joined as always by Andrew Knuckles.
Hello there.
And Joel Killingsworth.
Hello.
So guys, we are here to talk a little bit about Turning Red, Pixar's latest release.
Yep.
Streaming only, which is an
weird
interesting choice.
And kind of sad.
A little bit. We'll go into that. I think that's going to come up. I think some of the possibly the thoughts behind why, or conspiracy theories, or fan theories, or however you want to do it.
It's probably just because they're working on two films. They have Lightyear, which is more than likely a flagship for Pixar. I'm very interested. I mean, obviously it concerns flagship characters, but I'm very interested to see how or where that's going to go.
Yeah, that's interesting too, because it if you just look at it on the surface, it's a spinoff, which historically has not been something that is necessarily given a lot of budget or attention.
Mm-hmm.
But it's a completely fresh take on the character. Because he's not a toy, obviously.
Yeah, he's just a person.
One would assume he's not a toy.
Right. Oh, it's a twist.
Oh no! M. Night Shyamalan, is that you?
These are all of the toy Buzz Lightyear's memories in a flashback.
or maybe they'll have toy Woodies, like Woody dolls in the film. So then it's just like this weird metaverse.
Oh, he leaves his daughter with her toy Woody doll. And then he goes off into space and he hits like the 2001 monolith. And then you have like the whole, he becomes a baby, becomes whatever, becomes a toy. It's like, oh, wow. Pixar universe is weird.
Well, so there's actually online for a couple of years now, there's been like a whole kind of conspiracy theory that all of the Pixar films are actually taking place in the same universe.
Yes, and it's just different timelines,
different times of whenever stuff
well, I mean,
happens.
the pizza truck's in almost every one of them.
Yeah, there are several pieces that follow through.
Yeah. And that's kind of where a lot of it gets hooked in for like connecting all the threads.
Yeah.
Of the Charlie Day staring
at
the board.
You have to go very red string theory here to make it all come together. Just don't spray paint your floor, you weirdos.
That's a Batman reference.
That was a
for
Batman
those who
reference
haven't
for the uninitiated.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're gonna refocus ourselves off of the little diversion there, and not yet digging into Turning Red, but relevant to the topic. For our little quick intro bit, we're gonna talk about bands and music and formative years. So we're talking teenage years and who your favorite band was.
Okay.
Who was the band that you most wanted to see, or that you were blasting? You had every album, you knew every song.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna I'm just really intrigued. I'm gonna let Joel go first.
Okay.
I actually am kind of curious.
I could have told you what yours was, but I haven't to hear it.
Well, I mean, we've talked about it multiple times.
We've talked music a lot. I'm really interested to hear Joel's.
Right. So for me, most of my musical taste coming into the middle school years was formed by the taste of my older brother. And, I would go on car rides with him, and he was significantly older than me. And so
give me an age gap. I'm curious.
11 years.
Okay. Yeah.
That is a significant gap.
Yeah. And so like he would be driving the car playing his music, and, I'd just be sitting in the back, soaking it up, cause he's my older brother and he's really cool. Right.
Yeah.
So, but it wasn't until kind of mid-teens that I started really kind of getting my own musical taste that was sort of distinct.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I would have to say that the largest through line in that era would be Linkin Park.
Okay, that's a great pick.
That is a great pick.
And particularly the Meteora and Hybrid Theory albums.
There it is.
And those two albums, I would just back-to-back blast every day doing math homework, just for like 2 years straight.
Okay. Yeah.
Meteor is one of the short list albums for me that I can start it from just like track one and listen to it all the way through without ever like thinking about I need to skip this song, or I need to I want to listen to this one first, that kind of thing, where it is such a fantastic album. I'm not the biggest fan of Hybrid Theory. I mean, I know all the songs because I grew up around that time too, but it's really more the Meteora with I think Session is probably my all-time favorite track by them. It doesn't even have any vocals on it. It's just a really good kind of like a scratch track. I don't know how to describe it. And there's never really been anything else like it that at least that I've heard.
It was definitely unique for the time and possibly a one-off. I'm not actually sure.
Yeah, well, I know they never did anything else similar to that.
No.
I know that they like I've just never really found any other like artists that do that kind of thing in the same like energy and feel.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in that vein, Joel, what is your favorite song? What is the one that you just go to?
So like it's one, the whole album is one piece.
Right.
Right. In my memory. So, but you make me have to look up names.
Because those are the best albums, because you don't always get that feeling when you hear songs on the radio where one, track 5 and track 6, like track 5 trails off into the intro that is actually track 6. Yeah. Those are the best constructed albums. The one that immediately jumps to my mind, of course, is Evanescence.
Yeah.
Not my contender for this topic, but they had one where the violin piece trailed out and then it immediately picked up into the next one. I was like, oh, that was really well done.
So my favorite single track is actually not on Meteora, it's on Hybrid Theory.
Okay,
and
that's fair.
That's In the End.
Okay.
No, that's good on you.
A total classic.
Yeah. I mean, it's especially around like for bands around that time, there were so many like really good hits for all like Linkin Park is definitely one of them. Evanescence is another where they had and Evanescence didn't really have as a long-standing career for like I'll say like being in the spotlight for popular.
No, they were
right.
They
like
were
they
very
had their debut album was fire and their follow-up album was okay, and they just have not hit that quality again.
Yeah. But yeah, with Linkin Park, they just had so many like radio songs that just would always be on the radio that you could on any kind of alternative radio station or anything like that.
Oh, yeah.
And it's just fantastic.
Well, we're going to carry on in the same thread here. I'm going to pass this off to Andrew.
So we're actually just going from youngest to oldest at this point because I'm
we are. Yes.
I am the middle.
You're the middle child here.
Okay, so
the middle only child.
Going with pure what is the word? I don't even know the word. But Turning Red is about a 13-year-old kind of
nostalgia. Is that what you're looking for?
I guess. But about a 13-year-old in 8th grade kind of wanting to go to a concert and do all these things, that the 13-year-old wants to do. And my band is The Offspring, which was formative for me. One, because this was like the first, like I'll say, like kind of punk rock band that I ever really listened to. I didn't listen to like the Ramones or Sex Pistols or anything like that until
like the real classic punk bands. Yeah.
Until after I'd already listened to The Offspring for a couple of years. And whenever in 8th grade, this was right when Napster kind of became big. And, so this was the dawn of people downloading MP3s and having access to all of these different artists that you never really had access to if you didn't have the money to go buy the CDs. And
then you would go buy a CD and there'd be 2 good songs that you liked on it and the rest was just kind of
Yeah.
And at this point, The Offspring had already had, I think, 3 albums. And they were so interested in the downloading of music kind of thing. They went the opposite direction that Metallica did whenever all of their stuff was getting downloaded for free and trying to sue Napster. Offspring was like, how about you just have our songs for free? And that all, true punk, right? They want to, they're like, you know what? We get our money from touring, and they were definitely touring a lot at this time.
And merch or whatever.
Yeah,
else.
so, here, have our songs. Why not? And they, unfortunately, I kind of missed out on going to see them in concert at Warped Tour. They came to Atlanta one time and then another time in Dallas, pretty much all the way up until 2016, I think. Whenever they were, I need to look up the actual date, but it was the 25th anniversary of their Smash album, which is one of their most popular ones. And we went to the Masquerade in Atlanta. We drove pretty much like straight from work, straight there. Bad Religion was opening for them, which is another one of my favorite punk bands.
That's a good one.
And we got there right when Bad Religion came on, and then Offspring plays the entire Smash album front to back.
Mm-hmm.
And then they come out and just then hit their biggest hits of the time with, Kids Aren't All Right, and come out and play, and just so many great songs.
Gotta keep them separated.
Man, it was such a good concert that very very similar light to kind of how Turning Red like hype levels it was, and that was probably my favorite concert I've ever been to, and just because like they're also my favorite band, and that was my first time I actually got to see them in concert.
Okay, well, that's cool. Well, so now that we have discussed the music that my sister refers to as angry white boy music, because that is absolutely, I actually was, because I knew you were going to pick Offspring. I did not know what Joel was going to pick, and he did it. I was like, oh, this is perfect. Y'all are both on the same track. I am going to switch gears really hard, but also similar, because this is all stuff that was introduced to me by my older sister. And this is kind of an interesting thing, because Joel has this huge, like an 11-year gap is a pretty significant gap. Yeah. Andrew's an only child.
Yep.
And then I have a sister who's 5 years older. So it's not as big a gap.
But you're also older.
But I'm also older than y'all. So it's this weird level of separation, because the music that she was kind of introducing me to would have been stuff like Ben Folds 5. They Might Be Giants. And then
I know They Might Be Giants. I don't even know that first one.
Oh, you don't know Ben? Oh, well, I'll have to play some music at some point. They're really cool. Don't see them in concert, but it's okay. Actually, you can't see them in concert. They don't exist. Ben Folds is still out touring. He's great. His, I think, bassist was just kind of a dork. Anyways, carrying on. Sorry, old stories. But for me, the one that really stuck out and stuck with me was Jump Little Children, which is also a really weird name for a band. But they were kind of this it's very hipster stuff. Like they have bass, but it's an upright bass. It's not a bass as you would expect.
Do they have horns like a ska band?
They do not, and I'm actually kind of thankful for that. But one of the main players, their main central, I'm going to struggle to name names, but one of the central pieces of the band plays basically everything. In some songs he's on guitar, some songs he's on a ukulele or a mandolin or a guitar or the Irish tin whistle. Not kidding.
That is very hipster.
Oh no, it is, and this was late 90s. This is pre that term really kind of existing in the form that it does now.
Hipster even existed back then. I mean, I'm sure it did.
They did.
It wasn't in that connotation,
right? So the music is very different. They have very varied. I mean, they have several songs that are spoken word style, not sung, if that makes sense. So it's very, very different stuff, especially from what y'all have been referencing. But I actually got to see them here at City Stages back when it existed, when I was in 8th grade, and didn't really appreciate what I was getting, because again, I was there with my sister, and she was not necessarily like, I didn't have great musical interests at that point, so she was going to take me to what she wanted to see, and that's what we got. But it stuck with me, and they had a couple of albums, Magazine and In the Dim and Dark, or In the Dim and the Dark, that just really, really stuck with me forever. And then by the time I was really aware, I just really love this music, they broke up, and I was like, oh, this is like crushing. So my Turning Red moment actually didn't happen until I was out of college and working a job, when they came back together for a reunion tour, and they only had 5 stops. They're a Southeast band. I think they formed in Charleston.
Oh, so you kind of lucked out then.
Yeah, so it helps that their touring locations were all just the Southeast, because they were going to pitch to their fan base.
Yeah. So
they hit, Atlanta, Charleston, Columbia, just Southeastern locations. And my college roommate and I were trying to hype ourselves up to drop $300 on a festival in South Carolina, where, because they're kind of hipster-esque, all these bands we did not care about were playing, and then they were going to be there. And then we just lucked into face value, like $25 tickets in Atlanta, where it was like on a Thursday night, and we just, got off work, drove over, did the concert. And, we're
classic.
We're like mid-20s. we're like just the point where dropping almost 6 hours of driving and attending like a 3-hour concert and then turning around, get up and go to work the next morning is a little hard.
Yeah.
And just kind of like the last hurrah of, the youth, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So, but they did end up sticking together for a little while longer, and I was able to see him again in another really great here. I didn't have to go anywhere. It's so nice concert, which I appreciate because they have since broken up again. So it's one of those things where it's like, oh, we have to go, or you just don't know. So
because you mentioned city stages, I remember the last city stages that I went to, or maybe the second last. I don't know, but it was Evanescence,
Maroon 5.
I think Maroon 5 was the Schaefer Eye Center.
Or is it? No, they may have played the year after, but they were at city stages. Or was it the Kid Rock year?
That was Kid Rock year with Switchfoot.
Oh gosh, I remember that. Yeah.
But no, this was Evanescence and Shinedown for the major stage.
It was like the Coca-Cola stage.
Yeah,
or
man, that was a fantastic
concert.
That
was great. I actually do think Maroon 5 was at that show.
I could believe it
because
I wasn't into them at the time.
I think the weather turned bad. Not like bad, but kind of bad. And we were like in one of the parking decks just listening to, because we couldn't really be down in the stand, or not the stands, but on the streets.
That's where I was.
Yeah. Well, but yeah, no, I honestly, for the age I was, City Stages was not nearly appreciated enough for what it was.
Yeah. Well, now that you don't have it.
Now that it's gone. Well,
it's just,
all the major musical festivals that they tried to put on around here failed miserably.
I mean, Schaefer Eye Center, actually, the Crawfish Bowl was pretty popular for a while.
The Crawfish Bowl lived, and I mean, City Stages was popular for well over a decade, and Crawfish Bowl went maybe, a decade past that, and then it petered out.
Yeah.
And I think the only really big event here was the Sloss.
Sloss Fest.
Sloss Fest that I mean, pandemic may have killed it. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know.
I hope not. But anyways, after that little delightful diversion into our local music scene and music festivals, of which there are very few. It is time to move forward into the meat of the show. We're talking Pixar's Turning Red, just hit streaming recently on Disney Plus. And to kick us off, I'm going to pass this off to Joel to give us a little synopsis.
Okay. So, synopsis of Turning Red.
It's the thing that always happens that he never is ready for.
Right. So, what we have is a 13-year-old girl protagonist who is a straight A student, does everything perfectly, is kind of the model daughter for her mother, who we find out very early puts a lot of pressure on her to be perfect and be supportive of the family and everything, to the exclusion of kind of really developing any sort of personality outside of that relationship.
And getting to spend time with friends. And
it's basically her school results being the perfect daughter for her mother, and then whatever else time she can fit in on the side for her friends, or essentially herself.
Yeah. And then so we have kind of two things going on, where the friend group all is really excited about this band that they all love performing a concert in their city, and so they're trying to figure out a way for all of them to go. And on the side, we have a ancient magical blessing to the protagonist's family, where all of the women directly descended from the originator of the magic, when they become adults, have the ability to transform into giant red pandas.
Yes.
And so you kind of you take this kind of relatable family dynamic centered slice of life almost kind of thing, and then you're just like, oh, by the way, half of the characters can turn into pandas, and it's like, oh, okay, so this was not the movie I thought we were watching, but that is the selling point in the trailers, is that she turns into a panda.
Yes.
So after that, obviously hijinks ensue.
Definitely hijinks ensue.
Lots of hijinks.
So what did we end up giving this for our review score? And just as a reminder, this is based off of our 4 pillars of review. I'm going to steal Joel's term there. So this is the spectacle, performance, the score, and the plot. So this is kind of a technical look at the movie.
For our review score, we gave this a 7.4. Quite respectable.
That is not, maybe not as high flying as some might hope. It is also certainly not bad.
Correct.
Yeah.
Andrew's over here. He has
I
opinions.
have words that I cannot say until we get into the spoiler section of the show.
Normally this is a section. I think. Well, do we want to add entertainment on top of that real quick?
Yeah. So for entertainment, which we score separately as a subjective experience score, and you can have something that is really good technically, but maybe just kind of dry and you didn't really enjoy it, or conversely, you can have something that's just objectively bad, but you just love it anyway.
It's just junk food.
So these scores are not necessarily correlated. So we said we gave it a 7.4 on the technical review, and on entertainment, it's actually quite a bit lower. We collectively gave that a 6.3.
Oh wow, I didn't realize it was that big.
That
of
is
divergence.
blasphemous.
This is actually, I think, the first that we've done where we've had this big a shift in the two scores. Because we've had some where the scores have both been bad, and we've had some where the scores have both been good, but we haven't really had. And this, even at a 6.3, I wouldn't say that it is a bad score. It's just certainly not as respectable as a 7+.
Yeah, and I would say, to kind of comment on that there is a bit of unfairness in it, because we're not the target audience for this film. And so there are themes in here, speaking just for myself, that were technically executed fine, but they just did not resonate with me and my experience, and so did not contribute to my enjoyment of the film as a piece of entertainment.
Right. Okay. So Andrew is over here vibrating. I want to float this out here. I want to float out a theory for y'all that I've been kind of cogitating on, and I wonder if the order of release of movies has hurt the score here, because when I was writing out my thoughts, I kept going back to an earlier Disney movie, Encanto.
Yeah.
And I wonder if the release order of these movies were reversed. We might be in a situation where we're talking about Encanto now, and the score isn't as high because we're saying, well, we've already seen some of these things as they were executed, and this feels like maybe not a clone, but maybe just a stamp off the same mold. Because while the overarching story is obviously very different, right, between the two, without jumping into spoilers or anything like that, some of the themes are very similar, and kind of the scale of the story is fairly similar for most of it.
Yes. I would say the scale of the story is almost identical, but that's actually a problem.
Potentially, and that'll probably be something for a little later discussion. So, Andrew, do you want to jump in? You want to add some thoughts?
I think you're both wrong.
I mean, that's fair. That's very possible.
I think the scale for this film was substantially larger in basically everything for scope of what you're kind of experiencing on an emotional level and on an intimacy level with the characters.
Okay.
The other thing is too, is like, I understand that, we're basically all mid-30s white guys. Like, I understand that. And you guys said that we're not the target audience here. And generally the goal of films, and obviously, it's going to resonate differently with everyone, but the goal of films is to bring you into another character and help you feel what they're feeling and experience what they're experiencing. And just because you're a mid-30s white guy that has a podcast doesn't mean that that you can't resonate with it. And I definitely did.
Okay, well, I mean that's totally fair too. And you're correct in one of the best ways that fiction can be used is in broadening your perspective and making you see other points of view. But like at the same time, you've got to have a starting place. And in my experience, like drawing from my life, the hooks that they were using didn't have much to catch on.
Yeah, well, okay, so like, there's going to be like, you have to have similar experiences, and like kind of what I was explaining, at the beginning of the show, talking about The Offspring and not being able to go to concerts and all these other kind of extraneous things where like music to me, especially at that time, was so important because I was experiencing new music that I just never had access to because of online downloading and And, because I was a kid, I don't have this kind of money to go buy CDs, or, maybe my parents didn't want me to buy certain content CDs,
And,
like The Offspring.
Walmart put a label on that CD, and now your mom didn't want you to look at it. Yeah.
and those kind of experiences kind of add up into those moments where you look at, oh man, I'd love to go see these guys live, because they're just like, they're kind of more of like this kind of golden goose that is just kind of like above, kind of hanging around you, because that's unobtainable for what that is. And if you've never had that experience before, or those kind of emotions of like not being able to go see a movie that you really wanted to go see at the time, and then, a couple of years later you finally get to go see it. And it doesn't matter if the movie was good or bad. It just, like, you just didn't get to have that. So then watching someone else go through that, you can empathize with them a lot more.
Yeah, for sure.
And, like Joel, you've kind of said, in the past that, music wasn't a massive part of your, like, going to concerts is just not your thing.
Yeah.
And, Steven doesn't like reliving high school.
Well, so, and sticking to the music side of things, right? And I kind of alluded to it in my little spiel about being introduced to it. When I was going to my family went to city stages every year, and my parents went and saw what they wanted to see, and it was my sister and I, right? So I had no musical opinions. So one, this wasn't, unobtainium. It was just there. It was a hot summer day or two, where I followed my sister around and we kind of saw what she wanted to see, right? So I didn't really have, one, the moment of, oh, I just have to see this because I love it, and also this, I can't get to it because it was kind of being force fed to me, and I almost didn't want to be there, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, no, I mean, and I totally get that. So when I was growing up, both of my parents are musicians.
Yeah, okay,
and,
yeah, that's true.
My dad's a jazz drummer, and he's played with a lot of the Southern greats like Cleve Eaton. I mean, they have a lot of experience playing with people that I would have access to, and I grew up not liking jazz and not liking classical music. Go figure, because I was just exposed to it so much that, there's going to be that kind of kid level of resistance of, well, I don't want this. Why are you giving me this? I want to be a punk. I want to listen to rock music. And those kind of experiences really help, at least me, relate to Turning Red quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because there is this level of, obviously her mom in the film is very, not overbearing, but very protective of.
Well, yeah,
there's an element of overbearing,
because I think there's a definite through line. I'm still trying to skirt and not do spoilers, but there's a definite through line of a theme of generational family issues where the one generation had a particular flaw that in their parenting style for the next generation, which then when that generation grew up, that's what they pulled on as their breadth of knowledge for how to raise their own child. And so that
continued down.
That parenting style flaw can kind of propagates. And that's really my favorite theme out of the movie is looking at and examining inherited behavioral problems.
Yeah, well, okay, so like kind of going off of that, we've talked about Encanto, and like that is kind of the opposite of what's happening with this film. Like, so Encanto, the grandmother is basically just the antagonist, and she's basically just holding the weight of expectations on everyone, but it is not generational to the point of her parents are also doing the same thing to Mirabel.
But they're also not stopping it.
They're not. Well, it's definitely a different dynamic, but it's the same theme, because the theme is generational family conflict and dysfunction. The dynamic in Encanto is you have a multi-generational household, whereas in Turning Red you do not. You just have because the higher generations do not live with them, and so the dynamic and therefore kind of the buffering is different. You have a matriarch who is actively running the whole family in one, because they're all in the same place. And you have a matriarch who distantly influencing.
Who has influenced through basically her own misgivings.
Yeah.
Just throwing that out there.
But yeah, I mean, basically, I think 6.3 is way too low for an entertainment score.
But the thing is, there is no too high or too low for entertainment because it's entirely subjective.
That's fine. You can be wrong.
No, actually, we literally can't because we're reporting our subjective experience.
Well,
if you want to talk about right and wrong, we have to talk about the technical score, not the entertainment score.
That's fine. That's still too low anyways. But
I mean, that's fair.
It's at least a little bit more palatable.
I almost want to suggest Andrew throws out his entertainment score as a basis point. No explanation behind it, but as a basis point of comparison. I don't know if that's a wise idea or not at this point.
That's whatever you want to do.
I gave it a 9.
Okay, that's fair.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you can just do a little bit of quick math, they're both of their entertainment scores are vastly very low.
We already explained why.
A bit, yeah. We'll get more into that as we move further.
And also
oh, Joel's got something to say. So
when I started out and I said that looking at it from my perspective was almost a little unfair because it was just a miss. It's not bad. It just missed me.
Yeah.
And so in the purely subjective realm, I didn't hold back and I just said it missed me. And so this is the number I put down. And I tried as much as possible to put that aside when looking at the slightly more objective, pillars of review. And so you see a higher score there.
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, well. OMG! Four Town is playing spoilers after the intermission. If you liked hanging out with us, check out the rest of our content at spoilersintendedpodcast.com. But if you're too hyped about Dreamboats to care about spoilers, then welcome, Four Townie. This show is going to be so great, we're going to let our panda out all over the place. Alrighty, everyone. Hope you enjoyed that quick intermission. Boy band free, we promise. But now it is time to dive right in. All spoilers, all the time. And we are kicking it off with our first of 4 pillars of technical review. And we're looking at the spectacle. So for this being a animated, I always hesitate to call it animated. It's a CGI, it's a 3D animated.
It's 3D animated.
The animation's going to play a big factor here. These are kind of the wow factors, the big moments, these kind of things that really stick with you throughout. Or the flip side to this, because this has it, maybe some of the quieter moments that also hit. Because I think that is, it's really easy for me to equate spectacle to kind of the deafening roar. Yeah, but sometimes the silent moments in between are actually the moments that really hit harder. So I do want to make sure that I bring that up before we dive into this. And I don't know which way I want to hand this off. I'm going to give it to Andrew.
So I gave Spectacle an 8.
Okay.
I thought the overall visual style was really fun and different than what Pixar is normally used to.
It is definitely different.
So I don't think it's fair. It's the same studio, but whenever you compare stuff to, I'll say Toy Story 4, which was an objectively beautiful film, they have very basically new, almost every Pixar film, they come out with new technology and new render techniques that make the light bounce better and do all these other kind of technical things that Toy Story 4 was a great film, but then 2, it's a very visually fantastic film. The way that the ray tracing and everything is kind of done, especially off of Bo Peep and her porcelain kind of doll form, is just really, it's just really impressive. This is not that film. This is going to be more standard fare towards something like Encanto or Disney, is kind of what they're used to coming out with. So if you even go back to Onward, which is the last Pixar film I've seen. I haven't seen Luca yet. But if you go back to Onward, it's a very different kind of tactile feel for the characters compared to something like Incredibles, where it's more of a standard kind of CGI style, if that makes any sense.
No, I'm with you. And I think, again, we're going to make a lot of comparisons to Encanto. I think it's just inevitable because it is the most recent Disney film in this realm. But
it's two different studios.
It is two different studios, and it is interesting to see the differences. I do think they picked maybe a little, I don't want to call it flatter, but it's a more muted color palette with Turning Red than you saw with Encanto. Had a lot of color.
Yeah, well, and that's part of that's part of the culture.
Right. It's more celebration. It's more celebration of the setting. And I'm not saying that this is a bad choice for Turning Red here. I'm just saying this is just kind of one of those differences I noticed where things are ultimately it's an early 2000s Toronto. That's just how it's going to look, right? Like if you want to portray it, that's what you end up with.
Well, and so with that, you have so you say the color style is a little bit more muted, and it's really more that it's more realistic.
Realistic, yes.
Because Encanto is placed in this isolated village, which is literally just magical. And with magic generally comes very bright, vibrant colors. And in real life, I mean, even in the early 2000s, it really wasn't that bright and vibrant in everyday life.
No. Well, and especially on I wouldn't call the setting, it's not winter. They're not dressed like, it's Toronto. If it was winter, we would know it. But just kind of just a standard day where it's just bright sun, everything just is going to naturally look, if you're going for realism, there's a little bit of washing out effect. And we get that. And that's not a bad thing. It's just an accurate representation of what's going on.
And the one thing that I really did enjoy, and this is kind of more personal taste, I think, for a lot of people, is like I enjoy Wallace and Gromit, just the kind of like the big mouth kind of style. And I thought for this film, it actually worked really well. But if that's not your thing, I totally get it.
Well, so I didn't hate it. But I will say that I felt like it was maybe a cheat because for someone my age, your age, like Wallace and Gromit, it's British comedy, right? It's always kind of awkward. So as soon as they enter that, it kind of sets you into the mode of where you're accepting awkward comedy. Like you're kind of expecting it at that point.
Yeah.
Because that's just what we've been conditioned for.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying it's a cheat in terms of like, oh, that was a cheat move. I'm saying it's a quick way to create an emotion in presumably a target audience.
And the other thing that I really, really liked about the film was a lot of the kind of hints and nods to general like animation styles of the time, mainly for anime. But this is basically a Chinese family, non-Japanese family, totally different. But they had a couple nods at the end of the film in the big finale where all of the aunts basically break all of their panda charms to turn into pandas in a Super Sentai form.
It's very much so a super team.
Like Power Rangers or Ginyu Force, Sailor Moon. Less Sailor Moon because that's more Magical Girl, but there's a whole different.
But it's similar concept. Yeah, I'm trying to hit on stuff that people are gonna recognize right off.
But I love that, and then they also turned the film into a kaiju battle at the end, which was fantastic. And there were so many like good little hints of the Asian heritage, especially whenever they're in the bamboo forest, which is just a general motif for that kind of stuff. And I mean, I thought it was very visually pleasing. For the film, especially whenever she did turn into the panda, she was very fluffy. Which that was an ongoing theme for the film. But yeah, Joel.
All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and take it, and we're gonna nosedive this all the way down to a 7. I mean, I gave it a 7.
I was like, oh no,
no. I thought that particularly what struck me the most was the textures in the animation. I mean, you talked about the fluffy. They did the hair great. It was fantastic. The most impressive texture to me out of the entire film was actually the sort of plasticky sheen on the mom's car at night. There's a very
we are picking some.
There's a very specific reflective property of that material in that kind of ambient light, and they did it perfectly. And that
I thought you were bashing on that.
No. Because like
it's one reflection.
Yeah, I know. I was like, holy crap.
Because like handling like the two things that are the hardest to deal with in 3D animation are individual hairs moving and like properties of light.
Water.
Water is essentially
reflected light.
Water and fire are whole different things. Yeah. Like that's another. All right, so the four things that, but anyway, they just nailed the hair and the textures and the light reflection and all that so well. So got to give them props for that.
Mm-hmm.
I was not a fan of the Wallace and Gromit style. I tried not to knock them for that here.
Mm-hmm.
But also I think a standout moment, you talked about quiet moments, a standout moment of the film that was just like, was after Mei Lin kind of turns her back on her friends and she and her mom are riding home in the car, and they've got that camera angle where you're looking in the window from the oblique angle at her face as she's dealing with the ramifications of what she's done and trying to figure out what she's going to do next. And this is a very common shot in slow-paced live-action films where you have the kind of the scenery going by and the reflection of the window.
And it's at night, so it's just light.
Yeah. But you very rarely see that in animation. And I thought that them choosing to use that was really fantastic.
Okay, Joel stole my absolute favorite moment in there, which was that piece, because again, it is what you see that a lot in quieter live action films, and Pixar, Disney, write this kind of scene down, inject it into my veins, give me some of that in an animation like this, because that is not just a great piece of directing. That is phenomenal amount of effort to actually render that out, because that scene hits way different than a lot of the other scenes do.
Because like you get that set up from that angle, and then it shifts to kind of the more standard inside the car angle, and the impact immediately goes down. And so you're just kind of drifting on the setup that they had for the scene. And the whole scene, if it had started from inside the car, would not have had the same.
No, they need to kind of start you rolling down the hill into what was happening.
So I would say that, I mean, I did only give it a 7, and my biggest gripe was actually the kaiju battle.
Really?
Yeah, like the mom turning into the giant panda was, because like what I'm looking for at that point is I'm looking for a actual personification through like utilizing the magic to personify, exemplify, and work through the emotional problems, right? And with her being not just outmatched by her mother, but comically outmatched by her mother, meant that there was no working through anything exemplified through physical effort, right? So I was looking for a metaphor that they just didn't give me. And then visually they did a really weird slow-mo thing where she was moving all slow and weird, but her speech was still normal. And they were at the same time trying to animate the face to look like it was moving slow, but also keep up with her speech. And it just took me completely out of the scene.
Interesting. Okay.
I caught kind of the slow-mo thing where I was kind of like, there's something weird going here. I would never have been able to put it into words. So, but there was something about it that made me go, "Huh."
Yeah.
So
That's fine.
Andrew set us up. Joel took us down a notch, and I am just here to just tank it all the way back down to an 8. I mean, we hit. Joel stole. I didn't want to float out. I wanted to talk about the quiet scene. I shouldn't have floated it out there in the beginning, because then I wrote it down. I know. I was trying to set myself up, and then Andrew was just like, "Oh, I'll give it to Joel." I was like, "No, he's gonna take it," and then you did. No. Because just seriously, just inject that into my veins. I want more.
Don't do it too often though, because
then it loses the impact.
Yeah. We need some time in between those shots.
But when we're saying don't do it too often, like this is the first movie in I don't know how many we've gotten from Disney or Pixar animation that haven't had these. Like.
Well, but that's how many characters are sitting in a car, after this emotionally devastating moment.
But you can do that there are other windows in the world. The opportunity exists.
You can do it with the train, you can do it with the plane, you can do it with
You could do it with Superman.
No, you could just do it with like a diner window, or even just a house window. The scenery doesn't move.
Oh, like diner window in the rain, man,
is perfect. Yeah, perfect. But even just the house window in the rain or at night, the scenery doesn't move by you. The scenery actually moves by you because it's just cars, right? Just the car lights, like that. Those kind of what you can do.
I know that there's ways to do it.
I'm just saying, don't take 20 plus Pixar movies to give me this kind of thing, and then take another 20 movies before you do it again.
I think they did it in the first Toy Story film.
I feel like they've done it
with
once or twice.
Less well rendered.
It's not nearly as good looking. Yeah. No, that was because a lot of the things that y'all both kind of hit on, textures, hair, these sort of things, the smoke of the transformation.
Oh yeah, whenever in the classroom for the first time, that's fantastic.
There are things where when it's not well done, it's going to stick with you, but when it's done well, it goes right past you because it looks right. And I think that's huge props for them, because then we hit this other bit that really stood out to us, because it was like, oh, this is something you see in like, I don't want to use the term real movies, but it is the thing that you see in a live action that for the most part, CGI animation has just kind of avoided because it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
So it's kind of
hard to do well.
Right. It's a flex. And I like that. I want to see that flex. I had other things. So this is a weird complaint maybe. Cause I gave it an 8. Mostly I thought it was well done. Even if I maybe wasn't all in and it's more of a plot complaint on the kaiju scene, I like the reference and I think the execution was good. It creates a lot of plot issues, but we'll leave that for later. The scale was kind of weird at times, and I don't know how to describe this. So I want to give them props, right? Most CGI 3D animation style things, because rendering is time and time is money, they can feel kind of empty, right? We've seen examples, maybe in older CGI, but there are certainly examples of even modern CGI where, yeah, you have a room, but it doesn't look like anyone lives there. It's just kind of a room. And this one did a much better job. They had a lot more things.
Well, May's room was like, before she turned into the panda, she just
destroyed it. Yeah.
Like her room was like, felt like
it felt like a slice of life anime, or even almost, she sat down to do her homework and it was almost kind of like the lo-fi girl YouTube stuff, right? And that was great. The only thing that kind of threw me, and I don't know what drove this, but the scale felt a little weird, especially in her house, like when she comes into the house, because she's not a big girl, and the house kind of almost felt like it was crowded to her scale, much less her parents' scale. And like, I wouldn't have expected, like, it's not that they were showing off that it was a cramped house. It just felt like a lot of interiors were like 85% of what I would expect a normal human to live in, if that makes sense. And it felt like that kind of consistently through. And I don't know what I drove that.
I'd have to watch it again with specifically looking towards that, but I never noticed anything weird about it. But
it was something that kind of just stuck with me, and like it was just odd, right? It wasn't like, oh, this is the worst. I mean, I gave it an 8. It wasn't like, oh, you ruined the movie for me. It's just one of those things that stuck, because we've hit on a lot of great stuff, and I can just keep throwing out the various choices, or like when they show the home movie and it looks like a home movie in a movie,
or when the dad's cooking
animated. Oh no, when the dad's cooking and the steam and he does the anime glasses, I was like, yeah.
And then it was a really great joke too, because then he just takes off the glasses and cleans the steam off,
No, and it's like a free shot, right? There's no necessary dialogue in that. They did it with directing, basically.
It's helping you into his character too, because you can tell just by those shots. Well, he's quiet, but he also cares a lot about his cooking.
They did a lot of good job with the details of that, and I greatly appreciated that. And I like the kind of the interesting family dynamic that they played out in that scene, because he's in the kitchen cooking, and mother and daughter on the couch, and they're making the buns, right? But it's a mother and daughter activity.
Yeah.
So you kind of get the family dynamic almost immediately, because it's him by himself quietly doing what he does in the background.
Well, it's very much a matriarchal.
Right. While the mother and daughter are having the communal time together, they're still contributing to the meal because they're making the buns, and May brings the buns, and he kind of gives them the scowl. Yeah, inspects it and passes it. But it kind of kicked off the dynamic right, like they didn't have to give you a lot of dialogue of, well, what is the family like? You just had it immediately, and that's good.
Yeah,
more of that kind of thing. That's really good storytelling.
Yeah.
So I think we've hit on spectacle a lot.
Yeah.
So we are going to move forward into the performance. So I gave it to Andrew to start. I'm gonna give it to Joel.
Okay. So for performance, I gave it a 7.
Okay.
I thought that the standout performance was for the character of the mom, Ming, who's performed by Sandra Oh, and she gets to do a lot of she gets to show off a lot of range in this film. She has the overprotective mother angle. She has the domineering mother angle. And then she also has the just completely cowed daughter angle. Right.
The flip between the two is really and is instant.
And so I mean,
I'm not here.
And it's not all on the actress. The actress did a fantastic job, but it's a mixture of the voice acting and the animation.
Right.
And so her character had a lot of depth and room to really move around, and you to really get a sense of the range that they could get with her. I would say that my biggest complaint out of the film was actually with the squad of girlfriends.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Because every single one of them is just a caricature. They are one thought. Whereas, you've got the overly dramatic one, who's the one who wears purple. And then you've got the chill one, which is the one who wears yellow. And then you've got the earnest one, the one that wears green. And
Super Sentai.
No, just let it go on. Just let it go on.
And like there was just nothing there, right? They were one note characters, and so there wasn't any room for acting to pull anything extra out of that.
Okay, that's a take. All right. I mean, sure. Anything else you want to add?
No.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna take it.
Okay, go
I'm
ahead.
gonna steal all Andrew's points. So I gave performance an 8 because, again, she got the most to work with, and they did the most with the combination of voice acting and animation. But Sandra Oh killed it.
Yeah,
especially the flip of, because you immediately see where her personality comes from.
Yeah.
As soon as it's your mother hits, and you see the whole flip, she immediately becomes May. She becomes the young daughter who's not living up to her mom's expectations, and it's terrifying and all this. I actually really liked the gaggle of tweens, of teenage girls, for the fact that they were one note.
Okay.
Because
beat me to it.
I told you, I said I was going to steal all your notes, because at the end of the day, it's not a very long movie. I mean, there are points where it maybe felt long, but it's not a very long movie. And there's only so many characters. There's only so much story to tell, and they don't need whole arcs. They're supporting characters. They are there to support the story. And so immediately providing us with this perfect archetypal pieces of, and even color coding them so helpfully, well, it makes the storytelling easier, because you don't have to go super deep into who these people are. You get their personality, and it carries through. And you even get a little extra towards the end, where the earnest, the hippie of the group, heart of Captain Planet here, gets to try to be like, she's tough, and she's, well, I'm not talking to you anymore. And then the Tamagotchi goes off, and she breaks. And that was great. I like that kind of thing, because it was the moment of, I'm not going to be who I am. And then she can't do it. Yeah. Right. She's not capable of doing it, because she is who she is.
Well, and that's just, I mean, like every friends group, especially in high school, you very rarely.
This is middle school. It's even more emphatically there.
But like middle school and high school, you very rarely have basically people that are friends in the same friends group that have very similar personalities, because most of the time that is more of a combative kind of environment, where some people will feel that they need to one up each other. It's just because it's high school and middle school.
Or you do have that group of friends, and it's high school, and it's all the cheerleaders, and it's the status plays.
Yeah, but even like so very most of the time you're going to have people that mix well, and opposites generally attract. And you're not going to have, two people that are super chill and two people that are, very aggressive, or a whole group of people that are all very aggressive, because when you were a kid and when you're a teenager, you try and seek out people that you can actually interact with, and not someone that is exactly like you.
Yeah. Well, and I'm gonna put my other piece out here. I'm not gonna just talk good. I gave it an 8, and ultimately, like, as good as the mom's performance is, it by itself couldn't carry everything without either it getting more throughout the whole movie, because I think third act they did fall into a little one-noteness for a minute, and it wasn't great, and there was, I think, missed opportunities for her performance to complete the carry, if you will, because ultimately, like, the chemistry of the tween gaggle was good, but like that by itself isn't. I mean, it's not going to carry the full emotional weight of this. You need the mother-daughter emotional weight, and no one else really just got the opportunity to push that over the hill to get this into like what I would have given like a 9 or a 10 kind of level. So just throwing that out there just before we get to Andrew, because I know what's coming.
So I gave an 8 for performance, and we haven't talked about May yet.
No, we really haven't.
Rosalia Chang honestly did a fantastic job. I thought she throughout the film, especially towards the end, where she finally got to show her emotions to her mother and express those in either ways of mild violence or general empathy, whenever they basically all go kind of to the spirit world, and she is confronting her mom's younger self that had just injured her mom. And you really get a lot of the emotion that she's carried and that she's also learned from over the past, handful of weeks, while she's, having to go through this new change in life, with, finally realizing where her mother was coming from, and then accepting the fact that, not everyone is perfect, and everyone has these kind of thoughts, maybe towards their parents or their friends or whatever. And I thought you really got that carried over really well from her performance as May.
I didn't want to take everything from you.
Yeah, well, no, she's the main character, and I thought the casting choice for her was just fantastic.
Well, and I think the flip that we get from like when we're kind of first introduced to her, and she's on her own, and she's got kind of the big, bold, confident personality, and then as soon as she starts interacting with people, she kind of gets smaller. And then when she hits her mother, she just becomes the mini me clone. I think that's a great transition of really showing, it is the overbearing or the overprotective, the drive or the pressure for perfection, and the closer she gets to the center of all of that, the more she kind of shrinks in on herself, right?
Yeah, because at the beginning she is in control. She is she is the center of the group.
Yeah, I mean and even before she gets to her friends, like before she goes to the high school. So
middle school.
Oh, sorry, middle school. It's so hard. Yeah, she's right there. So flip this, right? So we go to Spider-Verse, right?
Okay.
And how does Miles, he starts out and he's super confident on the street, going along, knows everybody, blah, 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 blah. And then the wheels come off the bus and his dad picks him up, and now he goes into unfamiliar territory, and like he doesn't want this ride. He doesn't want to be at this school. Everything is awkward and bad, right? For her, it was kind of the flip side. The further she got from her home, as she's going, the confidence is building, bust out the transit card, riding the trolley on her own, hits high school. Hey, how's it going? What's up? Knows everybody fits in perfectly.
Middle school.
Golly. Middle school. Sorry, my middle school didn't look anything like that. That's what my high school looked like. So it's hard to break that. Like, my middle school did not have lockers. Those were not a thing.
Really? Oak Mountain had lockers?
Man, my entire middle school, and when I say middle school, I want to emphasize this is 8th grade to kindergarten, was not 200 kids. My whole 8th grade class was 18.
Wow. Okay.
Well, and then I went to high school, and my grade was 350 people.
Yeah.
It was a huge difference. So like, yeah, those kinds of hallways with the lockers on the side, that's always just going to be high school to me because my middle school didn't look anything like that.
Okay, fair. Carry on.
So sorry, not to go off on a tangent or digress, but yeah, I like that kind of looking at it from, past experience and the flip, because it feeds into both stories really well and how the characters are going to progress. It's not, I'm trying to avoid the plottiness of it and more talk about the execution of it from the performance perspective. But yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to give one final shout out to James Hong, as he has basically been in every Asian oriented role since Big Trouble Little China, I think.
Who is he in Big Trouble Little China? Is he?
Oh man, it's been so long since I've seen it.
He's not the Emperor.
No, but he was in Mulan.
He's oh gosh, the main character in Big Trouble. I can see his face, and I just blanked.
It's been so long.
He's the friend that he goes to for help, I think.
I believe so.
Yeah. Anyways, that's totally that. We're reaching way back to like the 80s here.
Yeah, I mean, he's been in Mulan. He was the father in Kung Fu Panda. I mean, he's just been in a lot of stuff, and it's always fun seeing him in these kind of roles where he's not a main character, but he always plays the really good little eccentric.
Yes,
kind of side character,
kind of quirky dude.
Yeah,
and he's gonna nail that every time. And even like not necessarily that, but like Scribe in Mulan is a very different flip for what he is here, because
Mulan is an antagonist.
Yeah, he's antagonizing, and he's the perfect imperial bureaucrat. And here he actually kind of defers to the bureaucrat.
Yeah,
in a sense. We'll get into that in plot. We're not there yet. Speaking of, we're going to move forward into the score.
The score of the
score. So this is the music and how well we thought it did. Generally speaking, does it help or harm scenes, or is it just kind of there? And I'm going to start because I've been handing off to y'all. I gave score an 8.
Okay.
And I really liked the blend of hip hop and what I would consider like a traditional Chinese music that kind of, you start with them kind of apart from each other, right? And they, as the movie goes, those two worlds
kind of collide,
literally and musically collide.
Yep.
And I could see it coming. The plot kind of shows that it's going to happen in the initial ritual ceremony. Speaking of James Hong, he kind of gives it away.
Yeah, it's like, well, it can be anything you want.
It doesn't.
She likes it traditional.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what you sing, as long as it's from the heart. He said. He said, like, I personally prefer, but I don't remember. I didn't catch what he said.
Yeah,
I meant to go back and look it up, but yeah. You could see it coming, but I think they did a really good job of executing that blend. Because when I say, oh yeah, boy band poppy hip hop, and we're gonna grab us some traditional Chinese music, and we're just gonna smash that together, and
I thought it was a great mix.
No, it was. Like, it really was.
It really, because whenever they're doing the ritual for the first time, and it's like the very traditional kind of thing, and then they get all the way to the stadium, and the boy band is still just happens to be there. That I would have been gone 10 years ago.
Oh yeah, I was right out.
But clearly they're more accepting of a very giant red panda destroying everything that they know and love
than anyone else would ever be.
But the second I said that they're still there, I'm like, oh, I know where this is going.
We know where this is
fantastic.
Yeah, we knew where this was going to go. But props to Ludwig Göransson, whose name I just butchered. He has been, he makes me feel bad because he's a year younger than me, and he has scored a lot of movies that I know and love.
Yeah.
And also, just little small minor things like the main theme for The Mandalorian and these just stuff nobody's ever heard of, really.
No, not at all.
And so it's a little crushing to my own psyche and
How
ego.
do you feel now?
See, like I don't feel, and I'm not even going to pretend like I have musical talent, because I don't. And that's kind of a misnomer, because it is something you can work and develop. But the perspective of his accomplishments, when he does that, hurts a little more, because it's something I could believably do. Whereas when I watch like basketball or football or something, it's like, well, I physically can't do that.
Yeah,
I cannot reach that rim. That's not happening. Whereas these things, like, can I hold a guitar? Yeah, I can hold a guitar. Like that. So it is interesting always to look up people and be like, oh man, they're younger than me. It's like, what am I doing with my life?
Yeah.
But his stuff has been consistently fantastic. And I think that carried through. And this was, I think, a good project to tap someone like him on, because looking at the behind the scenes for when he made the sounds for The Mandalorian, he has a really wide range of instruments that he can play and that he's willing to pull and incorporate different things from.
Yeah.
So when you're trying to blend hip hop and traditional Chinese sounds, that's a good name to tap. So all right, I'm going to pass this off to, I'll give it to Andrew.
I'll just go ahead.
I think. No, you're absolutely right. You should go to Andrew for this one.
Okay.
Oh, that's kind of scary.
I don't know. I don't know what to expect.
So I actually gave it a 7.
Okay.
And basically I liked it for essentially all the same points that you had. And I gave it some big knocks because of the fact that the film was advertised with official Backstreet Boys and NSYNC music.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And every time I saw it, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be so cool. There's gonna be some Backstreet Boys in there. There's gonna be some NSYNC.
Yeah, we're gonna really drill this down.
And then the second that the first like scene of the film, and it's Four Town, and I'm like, who's Four Town? Why are there 5 of them? And I was,
are you May's mom?
I was very upset that I'm assuming that it probably has something to do with
contracts,
contracts and all sorts of other stuff. But it is just kind of sad that they would kind of do a bait and switch with how they were advertising the show. Because it's like, clearly like, or it's still a show.
Whatever. Carry on.
But like that was honestly what I knocked it for, was the fact that I was going in expecting Backstreet Boys and NSYNC, which I like NSYNC. I'm not a big Backstreet Boys fan, but
it's iconic.
Yeah,
especially for people our age.
Yeah. And going into it, and then it's not that, and the song that they had was not that great.
It felt like it was a carbon copy of every single boy band song ever, but not quite as good.
Yeah, it kind of felt like Zoom 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 or Supernova Girl from Xenon Girl of the 21st Century, which was a Disney Channel film.
That is a deep cut that I know, and I hate you for that.
But that's what it felt like. And I literally knocked it 3 points for that.
So it's interesting because me going into the film, right? I saw a couple of posters at the movie theater. I never saw a trailer. I didn't see and we might get into this in entertainment because I'm on a Disney. We might need to have a little word with what Disney was doing with this and some choices made. But I didn't have that expectation. So for me, I was like, oh yeah, they kind of wrote some. This is pretty decent. But if I had gone into that thinking that I was going to get like Backstreet's Back all right or something, and then just didn't, they wouldn't have gotten an 8 from me here. So now I'm a little mad.
Yeah. All right, Joel.
All right. Well, I also gave it a 7.
Okay.
And while I fully recognize the technical prowess of blending the traditional Chinese chant with the pop music, which I mean it is impressive. However, the film as a whole, there was not a central musical theme.
No, there wasn't like any motif or anything.
Or any motifs, nothing that I could grab onto that would stick into my memory and say, aha, that's the score of this film.
Yeah.
And so ultimately, while everything musically speaking did its job, it was present, it supported the emotion of the scene, it is good. Technically, it is good. But I didn't notice it was there. And so it did not elevate.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, like that actually does make quite a bit of sense. Just because, there is no overarching main theme, because essentially the main theme, quotation marks, of the film is just the boy band, which is the core, one of the core plot mechanics of the film. So
it's the blend of the two cultures and kind of the generations. We have a bug in the studio.
I thought it was a feather or something.
Oh no, it's just like
it's just a mosquito.
And I mean that's kind of where my knock for it, because I mean maybe my method of going about this is a little weird, but I think whenever you take the bigger risk you take and the more impressive it is that you land it, not that the landing is perfectly clean, but that you land it, the more generous I'm probably going to be. But that is probably the source of my, well, this isn't a 9 or a 10 is, like, could I kind of hum some of the boy band stuff? Sure. But is boy band stuff actually going to stick with me very long? No. And there was no like, there's just nothing that's going to like iconically stick with you where you say, oh yeah, that's Turning Red.
Yeah.
Oh, that's May's theme. That's it just wasn't there. I do think they did a decent job, especially in the spirit realm stuff, of kind of letting the music run over something. Because those were very quiet scenes overall, except for music. No, I might have actually gone a little lower than y'all if I had been bait and switched like that on advertising.
I was totally bait and switched, and I'm mad about it.
Okay, well, it is time to move forward to the plot. The big one. This is the zone of the nitpick. I'm just happy there's no time travel here.
I mean, fair.
Yeah. Time travel does make a lot of things generally worse.
Oh boy, does it ever. So I'm gonna hand this out to Joel. I'm gonna let this start out low, I think.
Yes.
I feel pretty safe saying that this is probably gonna start low and we'll work our way up.
Probably definitely gonna start very low.
So I gave plot a 5.
Oh, okay.
I thought
it was gonna be lower than that.
No. I because there's a lot of really good stuff in here. I really, like I said before, my favorite part of the whole film is the theming about family dynamics. I really enjoy examining imperfect families because, let's be honest, every single one of us comes from and propagates imperfect families. And taking a look at that with an honest and critical eye to see what are the results of these particular quirks or sets of circumstances.
Or how does this carry forward through generations?
Right. And then once you kind of incorporate that perspective, it can inform you when looking at your own life and looking at the lives of those that you're close to so that you can understand better what they're going through and how you can be compassionate to them. So I am all about that stuff. But we get basically the entire third act and things just really start falling apart. So I got a bullet list here. So we're gonna go down our bullet list.
He's come prepared.
So the first big thing is that when we discover that when May's father said that her mother's panda was big, it was the most egregious understatement in history, and she's the size of Godzilla, right? And
she might actually be bigger than Godzilla if we get really
depends on what version.
But like we are so he said she wrecked half the temple. The temple is like a quarter of the size of her.
The temple is like her footprint,
right?
Basically, yeah.
And then we're also led to believe that this one kind of scratch claw mark on her mother's face was from her, which now that we see what size that she was, must have just been a splinter from the half of the temple that she
absolute flick of the temple.
I mean, no, that is a nit. That is absolutely a nit. Moving on, though,
I'm going to come back to that one.
That's fine.
So the bigger problem is that the way that the ritual is set up to set up tension for the big decision that May has to make is that it is couched in the terms of this is your only chance to ever do this. If you miss this window, you will never be able to get rid of the panda. And so it is so important that she does this right? Like that's where all the pressure is. And then at the end of the film, we have every single one of the women in her family take off their pendants and smash them and transform back into pandas to help banish her mother's panda, because apparently you can do it twice. And so there really wasn't a big deal in the first place. And so all of them do it again. So it completely undoes the time pressure element from the second act.
That it has to be, the ritual has to be the same night as the concert.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, okay, so they alluded at the beginning that they could do it again. However, it would be harder to perform.
That is in there, and it is possible for you to take that through line. It is not the emotional tone of how it's presented, and so it feels like it undermines.
But that's the thing, though, is they're talking to a teenage girl, and they are trying to explain to her because this is happening to her, and she is clearly not in control of her emotions because she can't control the panda. And if you can't control the panda, it is emphatically dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
And to her and to other people. So at some level, you have to kind of put the fear of God into someone to basically say,
sure,
like
okay,
you have to do this. If you don't do this, there
on.
could be bad consequences to this.
Hold on, I'm gonna step in because I think maybe I can support or better explain Joel's point here. So that wasn't I have similar issues here. That was not my issue with it because, like, yeah, absolutely. If you want to convince a teenager to do anything, you either are really crafty or you are full on fear of God. And we know which side this family falls on. It's the overbearing. My issue with that particular moment, because like I can totally accept the concept of, well, if you don't follow through with the ritual or if you are constantly transforming, the ability to give this up gets harder and harder, right? Because it becomes more and more of you.
Mm-hmm.
My issue was kind of I don't want to say presentation of this choice I assume they're all aunts, the rest of the family. So mother has transformed.
Sisters.
It's all aunts. Yeah. Mother has transformed. They go to help her. And that moment of them all like making the choice of, well, we're going to break our charms. It was less of a, hey, we're taking a risk here, and more of a Sailor Moon transformation. And that fits the whole idea that they're a Sentai team.
Yeah.
It just doesn't fit the weight of, hey, there's risks or possible ramifications on the other side of this.
Well, so and the counter to that is essentially they are older. They have lived with with this kind of knowledge for many, many years.
Well, they don't have any experience though, because they gave it up as soon as they could.
Yeah, they gave it up
meaning
40 years ago.
Meaning that the panda inside of them is actually not that strong.
But like they also don't know how to handle it.
Yeah,
because they have consciously chosen not to deal with it.
Yeah, like there are some issues. It's not earth shattering.
Yeah.
It's just kind of
it's
like
just,
this thing
because like I have this whole laundry list, and it's like each individual point by itself is it's a little problem.
I mean, you can
right,
keep going.
Okay,
keep going.
So next big thing, she tears the top of the Superdome and no one dies. Right?
That we know of.
There's
no real
everywhere,
consequences.
Right? Like the utter and total lack of consequence for what should have been a like national terrorist level event.
Well, also
is just like completely breaks any immersion.
It's Canada
for me. That is probably the only comeback that I would actually accept.
Doggone Paul Bunyan at it again.
Okay, all right. But, I gotta take a minute.
But no, I gotta agree with this one.
My friend Matt's gonna be mad at me for that one.
But I gotta agree with this one, right? Because when the dad talks to May and he's like, "Oh no, it was big," I was like, "Okay, all right, so it's just gonna be bigger than her," and then it transforms. Like, "Oh no, it's Godzilla." It's like, but when this happened,
well,
however far back, like that's national news by itself. That is, is you're on the list or like in a think tank study center or whatever being dissected.
You could also argue, because again, this is a soft magic system, if we're getting super pedantic here.
It's not really, because it's given very specific
it actually has some fairly specific
rules. It has specific rules, but there is no indication that there is any reason why she is that large, besides the fact that she is so angry.
You don't know that the first transformation was that scale.
And that's the thing, is like I'm almost 99.9% positive that it's not that whenever she, back in the day, whenever she attacked her mom, she was not that large. It's the fact that she was so angry at May's betrayal.
I don't think that that's supported by the father's reaction. Because like he's just like, I told her she was big, right? Like he to him, that is not a surprise. That is not any different from his experience.
But he also knows her in and out, and I feel like you're reaching. I feel like you're reaching.
No, this is a little reach. It's just it's one of these things where like we can but fan theory it, but there's not
like
a lot
you can talk back and forth. But my biggest problem is that if you make her a little bit bigger and a lot nastier than the other pandas, all 80% of the plot problems completely disappear.
I I don't disagree.
And you get to have an actual metaphor of their physical confrontation standing for something in their emotional relationship, whereas you just didn't in the way that it was executed.
I'm gonna let you continue, but there's also a missed opportunity in that as well, and it relates really more back to your prior point, but just kind of hit on me, was we also missed the opportunity of, well, the aunts and grandmother don't have as much experience with this form, so there was kind of a missed opportunity there for May to kind of be the matriarch in that moment, because she has the most recent experience, and kind of maybe they come out the gate.
She's the only one that's embraced the experience,
right? And they come out the gate and they're not maybe as settled, and then she has the chance to be like, listen, you know, and that's
because she's figured out the whole like transforming
how do I
to
get
leap
back
thing,
and
yeah.
Well, we'll get into that one. But that's I'm not saying that's like a plot issue, more just a missed opportunity to kind of continue the role reversal.
Yeah,
it didn't really hit on me until just now, because we've been kind of hitting around it, and it was like, oh yeah, that would have really, I think that would have amped it, especially if you bring the mother down a little bit, so it's more reasonable for them to have the moment of, hey, like, you got to, you know, do this or whatever.
But anyway, they very clearly at the very end make national or probably international news.
You would think,
and there's essentially zero repercussion whatsoever. They're allowed to continue doing stuff at their temple, so like nobody's coming at them for monetary compensation.
Canada calls for Homeland Security.
No government is coming at them to be like, you are really dangerous. At any moment, you could just decide to break your Tamagotchi and be Godzilla.
they have the collection plate. They actually almost
they are out of the goodness of their hearts trying to repay their actions.
They almost go too far with it by kind of making it light and funny.
Yeah, but like. Right, but like there's no form of national or like at this scale international authority coming after them and saying you're a problem, because they're a problem.
Yeah, like the end credit scene should have been Nick Fury.
Yeah, right.
Right? Like, but just being honest here.
But like, if she's not Godzilla and she's just a polar bear, you know, then you can pull back that scale and everything makes a lot more sense. So I just thought that the third act for just making sense and for the whole thing to have continuity was just a complete miss.
Cool.
Okay. So I'm gonna continue to build up. We're gonna increase the frequency of Andrew's vibration, and I'm gonna go next. We're gonna amp this up a little bit. Yeah. So
I'm really not that keyed up.
I know. It's just funny because I keep watching it. You're just kind of like, your legs are going, and this. It's sad. This is just a podcast and not a video cast, because it'd be really entertaining, even for me just to go back and watch again and be like, yep, there's the moment there. I saw that eye twitch. So I gave plot a 7.
Okay.
And this isn't maybe a knock so much as just there's nothing new there piece here. Not the whole movie, but just what I'm about to say. The core piece of it, not the relationship, but the core piece of plot of the whole, like, we're going to go to the concert that our parents said we couldn't go to, and we're going to raise the funds. This is a Saved by the Bell episode, or any kind of 90s 30-minute sitcom TV show type thing. And it just, like, there's this weird crisscross of like, well, am I being nostalgia baited? Or is this just kind of referential, or I'm not sure. So I felt like maybe just out the gate, this isn't a negative. It's just not a positive. It was just an interesting thing to choose. It is, for many, it is coming of age and Goofy movie reversed, right? Which I didn't see until I was an adult, when the concept of going to a concert would have actually meant something to me. Anyways.
Turns out Goofy movie also resonated with me quite a bit.
Goofy movie resonated with me when I was older, just because of the interpersonal relationship stuff. But anyways,
fantastic film.
A fantastic film. Yeah. Well, maybe we'll get to that one day. So almost all of my negatives come in the third act. And this was kind of and when we hit entertainment and stuff, we'll get into this, but it's not that like I was like, edge of my seat. This was so great, and then it was crushing. It was just kind of like, okay, like we've been going along, and it's decent, and I'm not hating it, and there's good things to love here, but I want to see how they finish. Oh, this is how we're gonna finish. We had that moment of, this was however many episodes of WandaVision, and then we just got the Marvel CGI fight at the end, and it was just like we had something here, and we were going somewhere with the whole interpersonal relationship thing, and now we're just, oh man, we need to get to the concert quick. Well, you know what she could do? She's Spider-Man now, and she can just or Nightcrawler, and she can just kind of boopity boppity. She's web slinging with no tall buildings around, and it's okay because she's a panda. What is going on right here? Moment of, well, we just have to get her to the concert. Well, how do we do it? Well, she's just gonna bibbity boopity boppity as she goes along and be there. Oh, okay, that's okay. At that moment, I was kind of like, are we headed to superhero? And
I think what they were trying to go for was a conservation of momentum through instantaneously changing
by she's
moment,
getting bigger,
except that they got it backwards.
Yeah, she would have slowed down. Yeah, it's whatever.
It is Disney,
Pixar.
Got
to keep them straight. It's hard sometimes, even though same but different, but still same.
Yeah.
So yeah, the third. So, and this is opportunity cost stuff, right? I touched on it a little earlier, Joel, when you were going about that we didn't get the teaching moment to let her be kind of the matriarch in the moment, and she gets the moment later in the spirit realm to kind of be the mother and make the oh, well, I understand kind of thing, to her mom as a tween. I really feel like there is a really big missed opportunity here. So Encanto, we're gonna go back to it. There are a ton of other movies now that Disney and Pixar combined have put out where we haven't really had a villain, right? We've had a protagonist and an antagonist, because if you don't have that, it's really hard to have a story.
Yeah.
But we don't have a true villain, right? No one is actively plotting against. It's just a mother being a mother or a grandmother being a grandmother, et cetera, et cetera. And you actually have to go all the way back, depending on how you want to look at Coco, to probably The Incredibles 2, 2018, almost 4 years to get a true villain in a Disney or Pixar production, which was actually kind of amazing to me going back through. So it's interesting to see that shift in storytelling. And I'm not saying it's bad. I think they whiffed on a chance to really do something cool, or maybe not cool, because it would have still been more Encanto. But whatever. I really wish there was an alternate timeline where these movies were released in different orders and see what the scores would have been. But when her father is looking at the home video, right? And it's happy, and she's making use of the panda, and it's a positive thing.
Yeah.
And it's very obviously a part of her and her friend's relationship. And then he talks to May, and she was big, blah blah blah. So I don't want to say that the father is irrelevant to the story, because I like the bits he got and what he did and whatnot. But I feel like if he had almost basically not existed in the story, it would have been okay, because I think I would have preferred, I really wish that the moment the grandmother lands in Toronto, she is the antagonist. She is some, but she kind of reinforces while also putting down May's mom. I think there was a missed chance there for that interaction of May and May's dad to have been her mother, where she's kind of, now that her mother is here and she's kind of put back in the situation of being May, she sees that connection. And there is a chance for it. I'm not saying the final fight needs to be the grandmother's giant kaiju panda. But I feel like there was a missed opportunity for a connection there in the story. And I know I'm not really expressing this great, but just a moment for, because the acceptance is, while there is kind of the acceptance in the spirit realm that goes both ways, I really wish we could have seen it slightly earlier, the beginnings of the, well, I see more of who you are, but now we have grandmother here, and grandmother is, straight line, forcing, traditional music, right?
Yeah.
Kind of thing. And so I view that more as kind of a missed opportunity, because it's not that I didn't like it. I gave it a 7. It's not, Joel hit most of my points in the third act where I was just kind of like, what are y'all doing? It's just, there was a chance to really land this hard. And they kind of, it's almost like, again, they did the Marvel thing. They went to kind of a safe third act of, well, it's time to fight the big monster. And there's just a lot of lost opportunity in that. So it just didn't hit as hard as it could have.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the final bits in the spirit realm and that kind of thing, that's the most emotional.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the climax.
It's supposed to be, right. It's just prior to that, it was just giant monster fight. Like there should be emotion in that. And May is like selling out, or her, I forgot the actress's name, but her actress is selling out to that emotion of, thank you. I like this music, and I can gyrate. So my final knock is just, there was humor, but there wasn't really humor, and it was kind of strange, right? So a thing that a lot of internet pundits, or whoever you want to look at, complain about, right? The period jokes.
Mm-hmm.
That was the best humor in the movie, and it was good humor. It's just there wasn't a whole lot else through it to kind of keep up some of that energy, and I think it really missed some of that, because so we have the conscious choice. This is entertainment. I'm going to hold off on this discussion. I'm going to hand it to Andrew, and let's talk plot some more.
Okay. So we're just going up. I gave it a 9.
Okay.
So probably my biggest thing, I don't disagree with some of the problems that are in the third act. However, them basically just paying homage to kaiju and Super Sentai style films, and the resolution for those conflicts is generally like kind of a good outweigh for a lot of this kind of thing. I mean, it's a Disney film. We already know that Pixar, it's still Disney. But whenever
middle school,
whenever
pick on me for that.
Whenever her mom is breaking into the stadium, no one's gonna die. It doesn't matter. Like this is like, what you're getting into when you're watching a specific type of film, and this is a specific type of film that is an animated Pixar / Disney film. That you are not this, like, it's not as bad as the fake out of Toy Story 3, where you think they're all gonna die and then they don't.
Spoilers.
Jeez, Andrew, just give it away. Why don't
the movie's been out for like 12 years.
No, it's fine. No, and you're not wrong. It is not
like it's not this egregious fake out to where you feel that something is like, exactly what's going to happen before it's going to happen, and that is more of the formula of a Disney / Pixar film. Not that, I mean, that's just the style of film. Okay, anyways, moving on. So the one thing that actually kind of did bother me, and maybe this is just because of the fact that I was in a relatively large middle school at Oak Mountain. I think we had probably 450 kids or something in our 8th grade class. I can't even remember.
Yeah.
A lot of kids.
Yeah.
And with a lot of kids, that means that there is a lot of people that probably don't like you.
Mm-hmm.
And
there are a lot of mouths.
A lot of people that just don't like you. And with that, any kind of change or I guess anything that is weird about you is going to be amplified, not in a good way.
Nope.
And the one thing that really took me out initially was the fact that whenever her classmates found out that she is this big, cute, fluffy red panda, they immediately went to loving and adoring and worshiping, whereas in reality, anything that is different will be shunned and just completely decimated socially, because that is just the nature of middle school.
Well, and also we run the underground funding ring of get a panda photo. There is no way that the principal wouldn't find out about that in a day. Even, and they pushed the setting back to 2002, so you don't have Facebook and Instagram and TikTok and whatnot. But it doesn't matter. There is no way those kids wouldn't blabber, or the principal wouldn't just be like, "Sure, there's a lot of panda merch coming out of that room. I wonder what's in there." Like the method of the funding is just because, again, it's middle school and kids don't know how to keep their mouth shut just by default. Like they have the whole threat of Tyler's like, "Oh, I'm going to reveal what you're doing," and it's like he shouldn't have to threaten this. Everyone should already know, because there's just no way to keep middle schoolers quiet.
But yeah, I mean, like that was probably my biggest thing that just like took me out of the film for the most part, was just because of how I was just like, wow, that is not how it would work in Oak Mountain. Because like if someone was a red panda, it was only known within the kids, like it would just not be pretty.
No, kids are jackals.
Yeah.
Like and any weakness within the group is just absolutely preyed upon.
Yeah.
It's ridiculously insane how true that is across scopes.
Yeah. Okay, so moving to the stuff that I actually did like, it is I did feel that her experience from just kind of like the trials and tribulations of just growing up with high expectations from your family, and trying to balance a friend and family life is something that I think a lot of people can kind of connect with. And especially during those kind of years where you are trying to become your own person, but then you also have the people that essentially you've been living with for the past 13 years and their expectations of kind of the type of person that they think you are. And then, you have a completely different side of you, not necessarily a bad one, because, you have to, and kind of the whole point of the film is to accept every part. Accept the weird parts and accept the the traditional parts that come from your family, and then also be accepting of your friends and whatnot. And it's one of those things where whenever I see online a lot of people that are like knocking, it's like, well, I just didn't understand. Like why one, like it's a 13-year-old girl. How could I empathize with this? And it's like, well, that's kind of the point, is like everyone, if you don't empathize with this, then you probably just didn't have a middle school or high school experience,
or you were the bully.
I actually literally
you were the bully.
I actually literally didn't have a middle school or high school experience.
Well, there we go.
You know what? That's a great point. Man, this is weird because we have like the middle school of 0.
Right. Yeah. I was the only, if you count middle school as only 2 years, then I didn't have any overlap with my little brother. So I was the only middle school student.
Middle school of 18 and the middle school of 450.
Yeah, like and it's and like that obviously carries over quite a bit in how this film is received for a lot of people. And I'm not saying that your opinion is wrong, because that's just, I mean, like you have a completely different perspective than I did. I went to a public middle school and high school that just had a ton of people, and it was a meat grinder. You just had to kind of survive the best way you could, and you had to find your friends, and basically not alienate yourself to be so weird and so out there that you would just get ostracized for years to come because of that one time that you said something weird in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
And and like that kind of thing is like, whenever I see a film like this, or like even Goofy Movie or any of these kind of coming of age stories, like they really hit home, because like that was basically what a lot of stuff I experienced.
Yeah. I really liked your point about how as soon as there's anything different or weird about you, right, everyone like pinpoints that. Because I mean, again, I went to a very different middle school than you, Catholic middle school. We wore uniforms, right?
Yeah.
The only piece of article of clothing that you could wear that could be different from what everyone else was wearing was your shoes. And you better believe that is something that all the kids picked out on and singled out kids over.
Oh yeah.
And it's just like we're all wearing the same shirts. We all have to wear the same shorts. Like, nope, found the difference. Or your haircut, right? Because it's weird because it was kind of strict, but also not strict. No one showed up with like pink hair or something.
Yeah.
But if, like, oh, well, you just got a bowl cut or something, that was actually, I'm pretty sure in my era of middle school, bowl cuts were everywhere. You didn't get a bowl cut. What's wrong with you, right? Yeah, no, it was funny when you pick up on that, and it's kind of like that. The middle school hit me again. It's like, oh yeah, the shoes.
Yeah.
I was like, oh.
Yeah, I mean, it's just different experiences from childhood, and that obviously reflects in a lot of our scores and how we kind of accept certain elements of the plot or entertainment value and that kind of thing.
Well, that's entertainment. I think is where it's
I actually
feel like most of the scores we tossed out here were all reasonable on the technical side.
Right.
More so than
it wasn't. Yeah, I was actually surprised. It wasn't until the plot that we actually really diverged.
Yeah.
Well, and I think it really shows that the score wasn't an issue of, oh, well, like Andrew was just slapping tins on the wall and Joel's over here throwing threes. It was just, well, we were mostly all the same, and then the slight divergences pull it slightly off, right? Like
Yeah.
And even the divergences kind of average out to where we already were.
Yeah.
So.
Well, yeah, and and that's just kind of part of it. Like I was more forgiving with a lot of the later act stuff just because kaiju films and Super Sentai and I drew Dragon Ball Z on a notebook when I was a kid. Like, I mean, that's just what you did.
Yeah, and the sketches were really, because Lauren sitting on the couch was just like, oh gosh, every girl drew these kind of cringy things in their notebooks, and I was kind of like, I mean, every guy I knew was trying to imitate, Dragon Ball Z
or Batman.
And we were all terrible, It's just, but that's such a thing.
I still have my binder that has all my drawings in it.
I don't. I do have some drawings of Gundams. If I can remember, I'll find those at some point. I'll share those. I'll share those with the Gundam chat. Yeah.
But yeah, so we can probably just move on to entertainment.
Yeah, let's plow forward.
I mean, we already know what I had. It was a 9. Pretty much everything I just kind of talked about as one of the reasons, why I found it. Like it's definitely I watched it last night again. I mean, I was working while doing it. It was more through osmosis, but like I still would tune in every time, I knew a part that I enjoyed was coming up. And it was just definitely one of those films where, it hit me really hard. Just because I grew up in, obviously not in an Asian household. I'm, just a
white guy.
White guy. But, at the end of the day, like a lot of those experiences do carry over. And I think that was kind of the point of the film.
Right. I'm going to jump in here and I'm just going to just go ahead and just put it down. I gave it a 5.
Okay.
So, this is kind of going back to the whole, like, am I the target of this? But, like, one, I really don't want to relive middle or high school. And obviously, as y'all could tell, I was pulling in both. Yeah. Like, I could, like, just the hallway, I could feel both. So.
Feel the pressure.
Oh, my gosh. I don't. Oh, man, you make my shoulders bind up. I don't want anything to do. Like, cringe comedy is not my thing. And while with kind of like the embrace of the cringe, I think they did a good job with the embrace of it. It's just not. I don't want it. I don't. And then of course the whole like concert as a quest thing is just kind of a miss for me, just in general.
Yeah, so, well, you never had that kind of unobtainable concert to go to.
No, it was actually the fact that I was going to be forced out into the hot sun for 6 hours, and listening to music I didn't really care about. Yeah, so I have a weird, I don't want to call it theory here or whatever, but I feel like I'm gonna propose who the target audience is. And I'll back it up a little bit, maybe.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure the target audience isn't kids. Just gonna be honest.
Yeah.
No, it's us.
It is. Well, it's not us. It is mid to late 20s to early 30s women who are either our mothers or want to be mothers. And it's kind of I don't want to call it a parenting lesson, but it's definitely a story about parenting and I don't want to say ramifications that can happen within it, but that kind of level.
Well, it's kind of helicopter parent, I think is the term.
Yeah,
it's more than that. Because there is the element of being all up in her space.
Yeah.
Right. But there's also the element of pressure to perform.
Yeah.
And those are two different issues.
The only parent here actually has information.
Helicopter parent really isn't a pressure to perform. It's always it's all right, baby. Mama, make it right.
Okay, yeah,
that's what I
don't have kids. I have cats.
Well, I mean, I'm
a helicopter parent for a cat.
This was the high school experience, anyways. Not my parents, other parents. But anyways, actual parent.
Continue.
Educate us.
So I gave it a 5 on entertainment value. Which is to say I liked as many things as I disliked.
Yeah.
Right.
Like that's totally fair.
And I want to kind of put the family dynamics on the table because that's the stuff I really liked. And we're gonna come back to that.
Okay.
But there were several major themes in here besides the family dynamic stuff. There was the concert craze stuff. That is not a part of anything that I want to do. And so
Joel is probably the most introverted out of all three of us.
So that's
pretty reliable.
So that's a hook that just has nothing to, there's no Velcro. There's no Velcro for it to catch on. And, and then there is the public school experience. I have never attended a public school. That is a hook that has no Velcro to catch on.
We have the homeschooled until college.
Right.
Yeah.
Then we have a very different set of experiences. It's actually pretty entertaining.
And there is the theme, they kind of use a little bit of cringy humor, which is to talk about.
I'll come back to that.
The biological coming of age in the feminine experience. And
that was fine.
And the mom literally like stalking outside the classroom is just I get it, but that's maybe just a hair into kind of a really, but anyway.
Well, compare it to, again, we'll go back to Spider-Verse, right? Compare it to his dad dropping him off, right? And he has to go through, and it's still the huge embarrassment moment, but it's the whoop whoop. Say it.
Yeah.
Right? say I love you back to me.
Yeah, and that's interesting because that one plays. And I think it has to do with the level of intrusiveness of the parent in terms of intruding on the child and their like the autonomy and dignity that they want to project to their peers. It's the same experience. But one of those was actively getting in trouble with the school authorities, and the other one was not, right?
Was the authority.
But anyway, like
I am the law.
I am the law.
But more than all of that, I really did not like the animation style. Like the Wallace and Gromit faces and the super overt emotion demonstration, particularly in the squad of girlfriends. It was just it just took me out of the experience because it felt not the way that real people act.
I think this kind of goes back to we've had these conversations. I don't know if we've had them on the podcast before, but the same conversations of how you don't like when anime actually turns into anime.
Right, where there's
overexpression.
Yeah.
Or like everything becomes chibi.
Yeah.
That I have a tough time with that too. That probably the Wallace and Gromit thing, I don't know. I get the idea of it, right? I mentioned that earlier, that it's a quick way to sell kind of the awkwardness, because it's the British awkward humor.
Yeah.
And it kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because I actually asked, I was like, did someone from Wallace and Gromit work on this, or they just adopt this style? Because they kind of I don't know, I don't want to say it rubs me the wrong way, but it kind of hits wrong, because it didn't feel so much as an homage as it did just.
Well, and they really only did it for the kids.
For the little bit, yeah.
Because, I mean, like, the kids are meant to still have, some of their baby fat and, chubby cheeks.
Yeah.
And meant to be awkward and
overexpressive,
because that's pretty much all kids have.
Yeah. Okay.
That's not how my 7-year-old expresses emotions, but yeah.
Oh no, actual parent experience. No way. I'm gonna grab it back for a moment. Go back to what I was kind of building up before. Because so I don't think the movie was directed for kids, or it was made for kids at all.
No.
And I think that's an interesting play. And I think it kind of played into the whole, it wasn't very marketed much. And then they kind of moved it out of the theater release.
Yeah. It not having a theater release is unfortunate.
It's a choice. Yeah. I don't.
It's probably because they probably didn't know when it was going to release.
Maybe. I mean, of course, the standard answer was they got to blame COVID because that's the cop out. But that's totally a cop out at this point.
Yeah.
So, and this is purely anecdotal evidence, but it was interesting because, again, going back to Encanto, right? So Encanto it still has kind of some of the similar themes, some of the same emotional hit, but it does play off for kids, right? You got the songs. That is something that they're just going to keep, right? Frozen existed for a reason, right? Let It Go was smash, We don't talk about Bruno with Smash. Like that is going to hit with kids. I mean, my niece, I don't want to say that I feel for my sister, but I'm not certain how many times that movie has been played in their household. So my niece was in town staying with the grandparents, my parents recently, and my mom asked my sister, well, what about Turning Red? And I think my sister maybe hit it wrong, like that my mom was like concerned, like, read the article about, it's not appropriate or something like that. And my sister's like, no, she's kind of a misunderstanding. And my mom was like, no, does she like it? Because my mom's looking for something to put on TV.
Yeah.
And my sister's just like, well, we watched it once, but she just wasn't that interested. And, I mean, she liked the panda, and I think that the movie really tried to sell itself on that. And that's where you get the whole, oh, so fluffy. We get the big anime eyes. And I really think that movie tried to sell itself on, we're going to carry ourselves with the strength of the cute of the panda.
Yeah.
And as a result, like we got some good humor. The whole period thing was great humor. And for anyone who is going to have to experience that, I feel for you. And I am right there with the dad. Good luck. But for most of the movie, while there is some good little humorous beats, almost up until the point where you hit the whole like gyrating thing from the mother and then it's thrown back at her by me, there's almost not really much humor in it. It's just kind of a movie. And that coupled with the lack of songs, I think that ultimately it hurts my entertainment for sure. And I think that really hurts its chances with kids. And I think that's an interesting thing. I really wonder if coming off Encanto, Disney and Pixar were looking at this and going, well, maybe this isn't going to be quite what we think it's going to be. Well, it'll go to streaming. And of course that's going to upset people as well. And it's a choice.
Has Pixar ever done any musicals?
They don't do so.
Yeah.
Pixar doesn't do musicals.
Yeah.
Disney
does musicals.
Disney has the Want song. Pixar gets to animate things in 3D.
Yeah.
I don't know. Pixar gets something. I'm not sure what it is, but it's not the Want song. The Want song is Disney. But they have found other ways, right? I mean, obviously, like, well, Toy Story didn't do so well because, Woody didn't burst into. No, it didn't happen. They made it work, right? The storytelling made it happen. And with Turning Red, I think they tried some. They had the kind of I'm going to mess up the term, diegetic music where the characters are singing it, right?
Yeah.
And you know what? If that had been NSYNC or Backstreet Boys, it might have hit a little better.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. And I'm super salty. I'm gonna carry that with me for a while. I could have bumped a couple of scores down for that.
Please don't.
I can't now. I mean, it's locked in stone. It's just
it's in the code vault.
Sometimes the vault. Yes. Sometimes it's nice to not watch trailers because then you don't build up any expectation.
It wasn't even the trailer. It was more of the social media marketing that
I didn't see any
that just had excerpts of just like not even a scene, just like a couple lines, and then Backstreet Boys or NSYNC music.
Oh, see, further proof that I am not the target demographic of this movie. I didn't see any social media marketing for this. The only marketing I saw for this movie was on a poster when we were on the wall of the theater that it didn't even release it when we were leaving the Batman. I was like, oh yeah, that's a movie that's coming out.
But yeah, it's obviously we all had differing experiences throughout life, which possibly could have affected our overall enjoyment and interpretation of this.
Yeah, well, it's funny because going into this, I knew you loved it. I knew how I felt about it. And I had I had a feeling about how I thought Joel would feel about it.
Well, most of the time, if Joel doesn't say anything in chat, that probably means he doesn't enjoy it.
That's a good point. I'm going to remember that.
Yeah.
But I didn't consider.
It's a trend.
I didn't consider.
I'm going to have to adjust my practices.
I don't know. Why did you? See, one teenage girl that's in the man suit here can keep talking to us, and the other one's taking notes. All right.
So like now I know how to tell, and I'm going to work on that.
But
I'll find it out.
Yeah,
this was great. 2s, 3s. I'll give him 1 7.
I'll give him as a treat. We'll start spectacle. Oh yeah, it's a 7. It was good. Oh, I'm setting you up. But I didn't even consider the fact that what our middle school experiences were going to be so, because like for
vastly
you,
different.
It just doesn't connect.
Yeah.
For me, it connects too well. I don't want that. Like, get off of me. I don't want this connection. And for Andrew, Andrew's just like, oh, I feel you, girl.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I thought that was fun. I didn't expect that just because I didn't consider it.
Mm-hmm.
But I am glad that it came up and that it was relevant, I guess.
It something else too that my empathy for these kind of I'll say middle school and high school plights may be amplified because most of the anime that I watch is generally slice of life. And most slice of life generally takes place in around the high school, middle school age. And, some of it's good, some of it's bad, but a lot of, but there are, a lot of those kind of experiences, just hit differently because I'm just used to seeing it. Whereas, I mean, this was a very different style Pixar film than what we're used to seeing.
Very much so, yes.
And because of that, I think there's going to be a kind of not a knee-jerk reaction, but a little bit of a, kind of step back and kind of look at it from, you're like, oh, this isn't, what I'm used to seeing from a Pixar film. Like maybe, if it was Disney, it would be a little bit different, or it would be maybe a little bit more, people will be more accepting of it.
Well, maybe. And I think you can soften that blow as a Disney film because you get to have the music, right? You can. Again, it's the Encanto thing. You have similar discussion, but you get to scale over it because we're gonna make We Don't Talk About Bruno a smash hit in the process, right?
Yeah.
Like it's gonna stick with you, and for being boy band music, it didn't stick with you. That's the whole purpose of boy band music, is that it gets stuck in your head.
Yeah, and it just wasn't enough of a catchy theme for it to hold on and hook you.
But I do find it funny because, like, you're referencing, like, slice of life anime, and what bits and pieces of that I've consumed, I don't get the same horror level from. I think just because Japanese high school is so different from American high school.
It is very different.
And it's more of just an experience of, clubs, or, like the way that they interact with, like, classes and stuff is just so much different that for me it's just an experience that I don't. You still get the bullies and these kinds of things, but I just don't get the same level of ugh.
Yeah.
So that is actually funny. But anyways, I think, guys, unless y'all have something more to add, that is all the time we have for this episode. So until next time, I'm Steven.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Joel.
And as always, every spoiler was intended. Thank you for tuning in. If you like what you heard, you can support the show for as low as $1 at patreon.com/spoilersintendedpodcast. We also have a Discord server and would love to have more people joining in the conversation. Links are in the description below. Thank you.